Hello and welcome to the Rabblecast. My name is Eric Hernandez, here along with
Doug.
And we we're gonna warn you ahead of time. By the end of the show, you might get a little downtrodden. We don't try to, but I watched Oppenheimer, so we talked about it, and the path that led us down was a little interesting, to say the least. We also talk about 4th of July. We talk about a family trip out to Chuck E. Cheese, Doug doing squats in the gym, all different things that we did while we took a short break during the 4th of July holiday. And eventually we get into talk of dropping the bomb, the Doomsday Clock, and some other crazy moments in history that we just, we touch upon here and there. Just as a kind of a reminder, I guess you could say, don't try to make a bad situation worse. Go out there, do your best, have fun. Hopefully, we can all get to a point where we're comfortable. But this is life after all. So, yeah. Does that sound well enough?
Sure, do the best you can, man.
Yeah, I guess. Also, if anybody is going to be emailing me, just in case, if you hear my son in the background, it's around his bedtime, and I heard him kind of arguing with my wife. So if you say, hey, what the hell is it? Why is there a kid in the background? My son is having a tough time. It's summer. What do you expect? He wants to stay up late. So with that being said, we are brought to you by InsidePulse.com. You can find us under the various different sections over there. Games, comics, movies, celebrities, wrestling, TV. We have to get back to wrestling one day. A lot of stuff happening in the wrestling world. You can always check us out over at Rabblecast.libsyn.com. Check out the Facebook fan page. Send us a tweet at Rabblecast. Email us, rabblecast@gmail.com. Follow us on Apple Podcasts, on YouTube, youtube.com/Rabblecast, and Spotify. Follow the show, subscribe to the show, comment on the show, share the show. Helps out. Trust me. And if you want to leave reviews for it on Apple Podcasts, it's always a bonus for us. And again, if anybody wants to speak their mind, send us a story, reactions, whatever the case is. Love to hear the feedback. So once again, rabblecast@gmail.com. I know I kind of did it out of order. What do you want? We took a week off. Now I'm kind of lost. Anything else to add, sir?
Nope.
All right. Without further ado, let's get into the bleak reality of human life and our struggles to make it through the day. Yeah. Let's get into it. Enjoy the show.
You're recording a podcast with your friends the other day. Yeah.
What was that?
Didn't you? I'm going to guess you never watched Letterkenny.
No, it's one of the shows I always meant to watch. I've seen clips like on social media, and some of the stuff has been really funny, but I have not been able to sit down. What's that on?
It's on Hulu.
Hulu? Okay.
Yes.
I might have to watch that later on tonight.
I highly recommend there's a few people I've known who have tried watching it who had no idea what was going on because it's a very Canadian humor, but I think it's fucking hilarious.
There was the one clip that I watched, and I know I shared it with one of our friends. Two guys are going, or I don't know if they're going to the gym or they're walking by a gym, and there's a guy like doing pull-ups. You don't see him face towards the camera at all, but he's pretty much like making mom jokes the entire time.
Oh, Shorzy. Yeah.
Shorzy? Okay. Yeah. I wasn't sure if somebody was just like pulling off a skit or something. It was later on that I found out that was part of Letterkenny. I was like, oh, okay. So that's something to, stick in my head as far as like, oh, yeah, you should definitely watch this. It sounds really funny. So
the fun part is the character of Shorzy, who's a pretty much kind of like obsessive hockey player who all he does is just verbally harass every other player by just making mom jokes and yelling, "Give your balls a tug, tit fucker." He has Letterkenny ended this past their final season went out right around Christmas this past year, but they have a spin-off show called Shoresy, which just focuses on him.
Oh, really?
Yeah. I just finished the second season. It's even weirder humor than Letterkenny, but when they hit, it's fucking hilarious.
Okay. Yeah, there's been a few podcasts that I've been listening to, and Letterkenny's been popping up here and there. They're like, oh, it's really funny. You should check it out. And they all say the same thing. It's really funny. It's Canadian, so be prepared for a different type of humor. I guess just like the beats are a little bit different. I don't know.
Yeah, oh, yeah.
So I was like, okay, no problem. I mean, I like British humor. Very dry, very, very subtle. So I'm open to like different types. I'll give it a shot. But the fact that it's been popping up here and there, and now you're recommending it, so yeah, I'll definitely check it and look into it.
Hell yeah, man!
Good stuff. We did not record on the week of July 4th because 4th of July actually fell on our record night, and we were busy with the family. Did you do anything special, or did you just stay in and avoid the fireworks?
I did yard work for about 3 hours in the morning before it got really hot, and then that night I went to the gym and did squats.
Nice.
It was actually fucking awesome because I was the only person at the gym. And, sometimes it's cool, like, when other people are lifting and, it's loud and there's a lot of energy in the room. But there was something to be said about, I was in there, so I turned off half the lights, so it was only partially lit. There was no music playing at all, so you just hear the echo in the place. Because it's all concrete, rubber mats, and steel.
Okay.
And the only things I could hear in the background were the rain hitting the building and the sound of fireworks in the distance, and that's all I could hear while I was like trying to do like sets of squats.
Nice. Okay.
Yeah, it was pretty sweet.
We took the family. Well, I should say we sprung a little surprise on my oldest. He's been wanting to go to the different Chuck E. Cheese's around the area.
Okay.
The one location near us here in Bridgewater closed down. I guess, another victim of the pandemic just couldn't get back on its feet after the fact, and other businesses came in the area and unfortunately took its share of the pie, and then eventually they just said, screw it, we're just going to close the location down and put the resources into other areas. So which now my son has been trying to visit Chuck E. Cheese's or other locations that still have animatronics.
Mm-hmm.
But because of, this is what he's found on YouTube, so take it with a grain of salt. But it's been believed that part of the reason why Chuck E. Cheese has been eliminating animatronics from a lot of its locations is the Five Nights at Freddy franchise has kind of put a stigma on the animatronics. So because of that, the kids aren't too keen on seeing a big robotic or animatronic rat or mouse and some of the other characters. So they've been trying to slowly phase them out. And his hope was we would go down to Middletown, New Jersey, and they still had animatronics, but they had been pegged for the renovation for it's referred to as 2.0, where they take out the show stage with the animatronics and they replace it with like a little dance floor for the kids. So when Chucky comes out, he can, do whatever, dance with them, and they can get pictures and give them a hug. And so on Thursday, on 4th of July, we said, yeah, screw it. Let's get out of the house. And we're not going to stick around and wait for other stuff going on. Let's just have some fun. Went down, didn't tell him where we were going specifically. He has no clue where Middletown is. But as we got closer, he realized, is this like in the area of Middletown? I'm like, yeah, we'll see if we can find this place. And obviously we're using GPS. We go down there, and I don't use the phrase crestfallen that often. Mm-hmm. But he was. When we pull into the parking lot, he sees the sign, but then he also sees the grand reopening sign.
Yeah.
And it's the telltale signs that they've done the renovation and they've reopened. So when we get there, he's all upset because he can't see the animatronics. Everything is more, got a fresh coat of paint on it, newer games. On the plus side, one of his favorite games is there, Luigi's Mansion. And I asked the one lady behind the counter, I'm like, out of curiosity, when did you guys do the renovation? She was about 2-3 weeks ago. my God, dude, I'm sorry.
That sucks.
Yeah, he just missed it. And like another guy could have gone earlier. Vacation didn't start until beginning of July, so we missed it. It was the end of June, and I guess they were trying to get it in time for summer break for schools. But no, he finally, like, after a few minutes of being upset, he turned it around and he ran around, had fun. Him and his little brother just lost their minds, and we just hung around for a couple hours. So I was like, oh, this isn't so bad. The one thing that sucked, though, for me, I didn't realize how close Red Bank is to Middletown.
Really?
Yeah, it's like about 15-minute drive. It's not far from what I saw on the map. And I've always wanted to go down to, I've never been to Jay and Silent Bob's Secret Stash, the comic book store.
Oh, okay.
So I've never been. And, I've also never been, like, a lot of people go down to, like, Leonardo, New Jersey, where the convenience store is located that was in Clerks. And then there's also, now Kevin Smith has a movie theater in the Atlantic Highlands, which I'm sure is a little bit further down. But I was like, you know what? Maybe we'll go check out the Secret Stash real quick. That way we can just knock it off of, like, a to-do list, at least for me. But as soon as we got finished over at the House of Mouse, I look over at Google and do a quick search, and all of a sudden it shows the Secret Stash is closed. I'm like, son of a bitch. Make that trek all the way down. Yeah, I was just like, oh, man. I was hoping, but I was like, you know what? I thought about, like, just driving past it at first. But I was like, nah, if I can't go inside, what's the point? So at that point, we just packed up the troops and headed home. But, no, it was a nice little, detour from what we normally do. And like I said, otherwise we were just like waiting around for whatever fireworks display or whatever else was going to be going on. Thankfully, my brother at one point bought some fireworks and they were setting them off out in the driveway. So they had some fun. But otherwise, it was just like nice, relaxing, take care of things. That's why when I reached out to you, I was like, I don't think we're going to record 4th of July. It just seems like there's going to be a lot of stuff happening back and forth. So, but
why? I thought fireworks were completely illegal in New Jersey.
No, not anymore.
Really?
Yeah, I don't know. I don't remember when it switched over. A few years back, they decided no, they're not going to, have any restrictions on them anymore. So now it's really weird for me growing up. Like you said, they were illegal, so you couldn't buy them in the state. But now when you go to like ShopRite, the local convenience store down the road, they actually allow them to put up a little like pop-up tent, and they have it stocked with fireworks, and they have one of those little mobile pods for storage to keep everything dry. You can buy fireworks just out of somebody's parking lot back there. And then when I go to Costco has like these packs, like just like a variety pack of different fireworks that you could buy. I'm like, Jesus Christ, like they're really like pushing fireworks everywhere now. So no, it's a weird thing, but yeah, you have your usual displays. So like the 4-H fair, the grounds over there in Branchburg, they set off a display. We live near the baseball arena around here, so they set off fireworks displays, like all manner of things. And then now, being that you can buy fireworks in stores, the local neighborhood, just everybody's setting off fireworks left and right. Like it just randomly between like July 3rd to like the 7th, we just heard like random explosions. And that's like the one time of the year where if you hear an explosion, like, fireworks. Yeah. And the other times it's like, holy shit, what's going on? No, now everybody was having fun. You heard like sparklers and everything going off. So it was fun, but I'm still not used to the whole thing. Because before it was like, you'd have to drive over to PA, put them in your car, try to get past over, the border again, and hope and pray that they didn't mark your car or peg your car and pull you over as you're trying to leave. Because at that point, they pull you over, they give you a fine, they take the fireworks, have a good day, and like, fuck.
Yeah, I've heard stories that they would literally, because from the border, you can see like the parking lots of like two of the big fireworks stores, if I remember correctly.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I've heard stories that stadies would just like hang out there, look for the jersey plates, that kind of pop in, pull into that parking lot, come out with a couple of big boxes, and as soon as they're back over the border, hit the cherries and what you got in the trunk, bud.
It's so dirty, man. It really is.
Well, and also I will say this though, as I recall, in terms of population per square mile, I'm pretty sure New Jersey is by far the most crowded state in the country. So let's be honest here, fireworks are kind of fucking obnoxious.
Yeah, I completely agree.
And one of the reasons I take that into account is about 3 years ago, on the 4th of July, I was up north recording the other podcast I do, and whatchamacallit. And then after that, like, I stayed over at their house. I went to care of their mom, and then I'm going back to their house to hang out on Saturday night. And they had the house closed up. They had the air conditioner on. They had the TV on because their dog is absolutely terrified of the fucking explosions.
Yeah.
So, yeah, their poor dog. Like, they've got, like, a compression shirt on her. And part of the reasons was the dog was, like, really horribly abused before they got her.
Gotcha.
So, yeah, like, I remember, like, at one point, like, petting her, like, rubbing her side. And I could just feel how badly she was trembling. And I was like, oh, fuck, oh, buddy. So,
yeah,
at that point, I was like, yeah, fuck fireworks.
It's
If
a
you
weird...
want to be a fucking man, go fire a gun up in the air like a real dude.
I got a funny story with that one too. No, it's a weird thing. I remember growing up, like, fireworks were always, like, you know, such an attraction because, like, the big explosions and the lights and whatever you can pull off. I mean, don't get me wrong, a good fireworks display is fun. We went down to, I think it was Peddler's Village, where they actually do, like, a fireworks display set to music.
Okay.
Which, like, takes a little bit more choreography as far as, like, getting all the things set up and which explosions are going to go off when. It's a nicely done display, don't get me wrong. But, like, I guess in the past 10 years that I could recall, like, more and more people have been more advocates for animals, as far as, like, oh, you know, the dogs, you hate them, you know, it terrifies them, and, you know, fuck you if you're setting off fireworks in the neighborhood, my dog is terrified. I'm just like, okay, like, it becomes the argument of minority versus majority. Because, let's face it, 4th of July, synonymous with fireworks. It's going to happen. You know, it's the birthday of the nation, so, or I should say the end celebration of the nation as far as that's concerned. So there's going to be fireworks going off. You just can't avoid that at this point. But the outcry of, oh my god, my dog is so terrified. Fuck you people for setting off your fireworks in the neighborhood. It's like, you kind of know it's coming, so maybe take some steps to mitigate it and just don't be mad at the crowd. There's nothing you can do about it at this point. Like, unless you take away all the fireworks, and like I said again, because Jersey now allows them, which is just weird to me, it happens more frequently now. Like, for days afterwards, like I said, anybody, if you didn't have your fireworks set off that night leading up to it, and then the days after, there's just random fireworks going off. People are having cookouts, people are having get-togethers, and then they just bring out whatever fireworks they haven't shut off, and, you know, Roman candles, what are they called? Jumping jacks, I think, are the other ones, and they just all over the place. You just see the fireworks going off like crazy. Bottle rockets, always a popular one. The one that we used to play with back when I was younger was you'd take the bottle rocket, you'd break the stick off, and then you'd set the bottle rocket on the ground and then light it. The problem is you never know where it was going to go, so you'd have to run and hope that the bottle rocket didn't single you out. It's just a random launch wherever the trajectory of the fire spouting out of the back of it, it would spin the bottle rocket in like weird directions, and you just hope that it didn't come in your area. It's like, holy shit. You like dive behind a car or behind a tree or something, just hope it didn't pop near you. But
the weird...
What was it, good?
No, well, finish what you were finished. Were you still going on that story?
No, yeah, that's the finish of that one. So go ahead.
Okay. The weird one was, I think it was, you think New Jersey laws are weird. Pennsylvania laws are even fucking weirder. So for the longest time, if you were in Pennsylvania, certain types of fireworks were legal if you were a Pennsylvania resident. So I'll give you an example. Like, you know, the tiny firecrackers and sparklers and like bottle rockets and some of the smaller stuff was legal if you were a PA resident. But if you had an out-of-state license, you could buy like the cakes, some of the smaller aerial bombs, bottle rockets, and some of like the more mid-level, the more serious stuff. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And it was weird because it was one of those things where it's because I remember going back there to visit some friends years ago, like about 10, 11 years ago, and going out and going to a fireworks store, and I grabbed like a bunch of random like fucking cakes and stuff like that, and went up, and they're like, "Oh, can I see your ID?" And I was like, "Hi, here's my New Jersey ID." And he's like, "Okay, just remember, you can't set those off in PA." Wink, wink. And yeah, and since I had some friends who lived in the woods, we went and set them off like a bunch of dickheads. And it was just one of those deals where we found out that it was the weirdest thing. But now that they've legalized that a couple of years ago, so pretty much everything is legal in PA, as I recall. And of course, once again, leave it to dumb fucks to abuse the rules. So, yeah, I get it. Around the 4th of July, it's going to get crazy for a couple of days. And I don't like it. You know, I think it's shitty. And I'll give you another quick example, too. Some years ago, I went to a camping event out at a private campground down in Maryland. And Friday night, they had this whole big thing where people were doing fire art. So there were people spinning fire poi, people were breathing fire, there were like fire hula hoops, all kinds of fire-related shit. And they wrapped it off by setting off some aerial bombs.
Okay.
But they never told anybody that the fireworks were going to be the big surprise.
Oh.
And it kind of created a... Well, the problem was, the issue it created was there was at least one person there who was a combat veteran.
Ah, fuck.
And that basically he said, like, well, thanks for fucking not telling us, and thanks for fucking kind of like setting off my PTSD, asshole.
Yeah. See, that I can understand that, especially if you don't know it's coming.
Mm-hmm.
Then that's a shitty thing. But if you had an idea that they're gonna have a fireworks display, then maybe you bring some headphones or earmuffs or something to dampen it, or at the very least, it's coming, so it's not going to be as jarring. Hopefully.
Yeah.
So let me just say, because I don't want anybody like emailing me like, dogs, have feelings too. Like, I get it. I'm not saying that you shouldn't take care of your loved one as far as your pet is concerned, but look, if you're around the neighborhood and they're going to be setting off displays, like because of our proximity to the baseball arena, during the summertime, there's random fireworks displays. If the local team wins, then they'll have a fireworks display. So sometimes, like on a Thursday or Friday or even a Saturday night, you'll just hear fireworks going off. Now, we don't currently have a dog, but when we did, they would get upset and they'd start barking. They weren't trembling, but they would just almost challenge the fireworks. So it wasn't so that big of a deal for us, but I can see for dogs who are more timid, like you said, the ones that have been abused. Yeah, I can understand that. So just take care of your dog. Take the certain precautions that you need. You're not going to stop the majority from having a good time and setting off fireworks. So It's a catch-22, but.
No, and I know it's inevitable. It's going to happen every fucking year. It's just one of those things where I would kind of prefer it if people just kind of contained it to, like, get your rocks off on July 4th, and like, you don't need 4 days of goddamn fireworks.
Yes, agree.
That's a little obnoxious. That's a little excessive.
Yeah, when it's going off continuously throughout the neighborhood, like I said, the day that my brother was setting off fireworks, it was cool because it was right here, so we knew what was going on. Everything was safe. The kids were supervised. No big deal. But then, randomly, you just heard explosions throughout the neighborhood. So whether it was one of the cakes or one of the the larger ones, or if somebody had bought some M80s, I don't know. Some shit was just loud. I'm like, oh fuck, man! It's a good thing. Just close the windows, close the doors, and just stay inside, because otherwise, you go outside, you just hear some random fireworks going off. You're like, all right, I've had it, enough. It's not as exciting when you only hear them and you can't see them.
Mm-hmm.
So
it's also kind of funny that one of the most dangerous ones are the ones that people really don't pay much attention to.
Yeah.
The sparklers.
Oh yes.
Those fuckers burn hot.
There is a YouTube. I think I mentioned these guys before. There's a YouTube channel that goes by the name of How Ridiculous. Oh, excuse me. Ugh, I can't even say the words. How Ridiculous.
Okay.
3 guys from down under. They get together. They drop things from a high tower. They do slow motion videos. They do races. They do trick shots. All manner of things. Really funny guys. Really, really good channel. Our kids are really into it. one of the challenges they had pieces of drywall, and they set them up in a row of 10. So you have to like throw different implements or items through it. So a baseball or a hammer or whatever they had in the warehouse. One of the things they had was sparklers. Mm-hmm. So the one guy puts on a fireproof glove, and they light like a handful of sparklers. You don't really get an idea of how bad it was in the video when it happens initially, but as soon as they light, and the guy had like probably like 30 or 40 sparklers in his hand. They light them
bunched together.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
Okay.
They light them, and like you said, they burn really hot. Well, when you have that many all bunched together, it got super hot. It was like a flare essentially right in his hand, and he did not hesitate, even with the glove on. They saw that flare up happen, and the one guy just dropped them right then and there, and they all scattered. They came back and just saw like a tangled mess of the little metal sticks with whatever was dried phosphorus after the fact, just stuck to everything. Like, yeah, no, it was a good thing you dropped those. Like, well, you can throw as many as you feel comfortable with. But I don't know which video it was. But if you watch the clip where the guy finally grabs a smaller handful and they throw them, they do a slow motion shot, and you see as the sparklers are flying through the air, they're still going off. It creates this beautiful cascade of different sparks, and then when it hits the drywall, it's almost like mini big bangs happening all at once. Because the way they filmed it, it's just a beautiful like simulation of what the galaxy looks like or what stars look like. So it's like, oh, this is a really nice little piece here, like in this weird dumb video of just three guys having fun. They actually got like this artful shot of sparklers just like spreading all over the place. So I was like, all right, that's fun. But no, yes, sparklers definitely more dangerous than people give them credit for. And if you don't, please warn your children. Tell them not to touch the hot end. They're going to get curious. They're going to see it glowing. They're going to put their finger there. I know this because I did it as a kid. And fuck, that hurt. That shit, even after it cools down and the glow subsides, it's still pretty fucking hot for a while. So, yeah, that stuff can really, like, if they're done writing their name in the air or they're done playing with it, have them put it in a bucket with water, have them, something. Because if they try dropping it and it hits their leg or hits their hand somewhere, whatever, that shit can hurt. So, yeah, all that stuff. You're right. Even like the big stuff that goes boom and to the smaller things that just light up. All that stuff needs to be handled with care, because otherwise you're going to either have to make a trip to the bathroom cabinet to get some Band-Aids, or probably I'll call up the doctor and say, oh, can you reattach a finger late night, please? So my one brother, the oldest out of us, had a moment when he was young. I think it's like before I was born, where I guess they were lighting off fireworks, and one, not the jumping jacks, but the other ones that just go bang. He went to go light it and did not realize just how short the fuse was and did not run away fast enough. And pretty much right in front of his face, the thing went off.
Oh.
So like his hearing was messed up for a while. And they're like, oh yeah, he's probably, keep a closer eye on him. But this was also like early 80s. So the idea of children's supervision was not as hardened as it is nowadays. So,
well, back in those days, it was, I don't know, things were a little bit different.
A little bit faster, a little bit looser. They could do whatever they want. So, let me circle back around to firing your gun off in the air.
Okay, yeah. What was up? Walk me up on that one.
Okay, not related to 4th of July, but it brings up a funny story. Years ago, we would travel back to Central America to visit my grandfather in Guatemala. And when we go to Guate, we would go usually around October. There used to be a fair that would come through town. And they'd set up like games, and they'd have like music at there's like a little dance hall. They'd set up music and everything else, and everybody would have fun. I remember we came into town when the fair was going on. So that night, I think like the second night we were there, they had already set up for the fair, and things were underway. I remember this specifically because it was around the time where Mortal Kombat 2 had come out on the Sega Genesis.
Ah.
and I brought my system with me because I didn't want to go out in the heat. So I figured, all right, they have electricity. We can hook up a television there. I'll just play video games when we're not doing stuff. So I'm on the second floor of my grandfather's house. I'm having fun, just playing, showing everybody fatalities and everything else. Nobody's like, "Oh my god, that's so violent, so crazy." Yeah, cool, isn't it? And one of the guys who was friends with my grandfather apparently had a few drinks and was really happy. Loves the fair, and as they're like, all right, you've had a few. Let's call it a night, because he was starting to get a little sloppy.
Mm-hmm.
And as he's
Yeah.
leaving, all of a sudden he's in the middle of the street. He takes his gun out and fires a few rounds up into the air. And I'm used to the loud bangs because, again, fireworks and everything else. But then suddenly people run inside the house. Goes, everybody okay? Is everybody okay? Like, one of your grandfather's friends just fired his gun off, and we were just making sure that nobody got hurt, because obviously bullets go up and they have to come down somewhere.
And they're aerodynamic, so they could come down fast enough to penetrate skin.
Absolutely. And we didn't know. I don't think they ever found out where the bullets actually landed, but thankfully nobody was reported hurt. So I'm guessing they went out into the wooded area, or at the very least away from the homes. But yeah, the main street of town, he's just decided to fire his gun off, whether he was in line with one of the houses, or the line of sight, I guess you can say, whether he was lined up with any of the homes or anything like that, or just fired towards the hills. I don't know. But I just remember sitting there playing Mortal Kombat, 4 or 5 loud booms go off. I'm like, what the fuck? That's a loud firecracker. And come to find out, it's not a firecracker.
Huh.
So, yeah, good shit. That's what they always tell us when we're visiting back down in Central America. Just be careful where you go, because you never know who's going to have a gun. And most of those guys out there probably have a gun, if not more than one. So he's like, okay, good shit. Be ready. Keep your head in a swivel.
And if the other guy has a gun, you should probably have a gun too.
I don't think we've ever. Funny enough, we've never actually carried guns. I remember my uncle. I don't know if I ever told this story. I won't go into it too much because.
You told this to me in person, so I think I know where you're going, but please continue.
Yeah, my uncle. Well, which one is this? Because was it my uncle who was the mayor of the town, or was it my uncle who was stopped by the military?
The mayor.
Okay. So my uncle Harry, mind you, my family has been involved in the politics in the local area, so they've always had, different groups and different interests, whatever the case is. But my grandfather at one point was the mayor, and my uncle was at one point the mayor of the town. And when my uncle decides he wants to show us his office and where he works and everything else, we go, and he's showing us just how prepared he is. He has a gun on him. His pens, the back of the pens were actually knife blades, which blew my mind at first. And all of a sudden, then he opens his drawer and there's a grenade sitting in there.
That's
And we look at it. It's picture this. It's like the dark green color, military color, not black, but that very what is it, like a forest green or hunter green?
Yeah, olive drab.
Yeah. And it's a circular grenade, and it's got that metal band going around the middle of it. And you could see very visibly where the clip is and where the pin is inserted. And they ask him, my brothers ask him, because don't know what the heck I'm actually looking at the time. Oh, what's that? What do you have there? He goes, oh, if anybody tries to come and take me out, I'm taking them with me. my family has very finite ideas when it comes to conflict, and if they know if there's gonna have to be a line drawn, they're willing to take that step. So my grandfather, I don't think ever had that type of deal set up, but I'm sure the politics and the opposing side probably if they could take you out, they would try, probably, but they would err on the side of caution because they know that would cause more problems in and around the area. But yeah, so all right, so let me tell you my other uncle who was this is I don't know the exact number. He was going from one side of town. Well, he left our countryside town. He was going into like the main town where all the shops and everything were. About a half hour away. Back then it was like dirt roads and it was kind of difficult to get to, but you know, buses, and if you had a car or if you had a motorcycle, you can make the trip very, very easily. As he's going, there's always military personnel around these areas because they want to make sure things are secure and things are taken care of and there's no nonsense going on, especially because of drug lords and everything else. So my uncle goes, and I guess somebody tipped the military off as he's trying to go into the main town just to go do like his errands and see his friends or whatever the case, take care of business. They stop him and they said, "We got a report that you're coming in and you might be looking to cause some trouble." He goes, "What do you mean cause some trouble?" "Look, just to be safe, we need to ask you that if you have anything on you, we need to temporarily take it off." He goes, "What are you talking about?" He goes, "Your firearms. If you have anything on you, we need to temporarily take it off. When you leave town, we'll give it back to you." He goes, "Well, what if I get into trouble in town?" He goes, "That's what we're worried about." So please don't give us a hard time. Just if you have something on you, we're asking for you to voluntarily give it up, and we'll hold it for you here. And when you're done, you can come back and get it. So apparently, my uncle had a gun in his waistband, in his back. He had one. He had one visibly on his side. I guess like on what is that? The holster that you put over your shoulders. I can't.
Oh yeah, like the shoulder holster, so it kind of sits like just below your armpit.
Yes. So that one was visible that you could see. The waistband one was under his shirt. He had another one in his boot on his right leg.
Fuck yeah.
Something like 3 or 4 guns that were taken off of his body. And when the story came back, he said they didn't find the other 3. It's like, where were you hiding 3 more handguns? Like, what the fuck were you doing? Like, why would you even leave the town if you knew that you were going to run into that kind of problem? Apparently, my uncle loved to run his mouth off a little bit, so God rest his soul, he's long since passed. But he was a trip. And when he came to live in the States, it was really funny because as far as the gun laws here, he was always upset because he could never fully, I guess, outfit his armory the way he wanted to. He was very pro-gun, let's put it that way. And I'm sure if he could have, he probably would have had a minigun sitting in his living room on the coffee table. But it was just one of those things.
I'm sure he would have had a tactical nuke if necessary.
Oh yeah, I think it had to have been because of my uncles that I have this penchant for always carrying a knife on me.
Okay.
And it's not like in any malicious way. I usually use my knife as a letter opener, or if, the kids have a toy that I have to pop open. I can easily use the blade to open the battery door if I don't have a screwdriver on me, whatever the case is. The other day, we were visiting Jen's mom, and she's trying to open up. She got a package from Amazon. She goes, "I can't open this. Do me a favor. You always have a knife on you. Can you open this?" And I in that moment, I had to stop. I'm like, wow, you're right. I always do have a knife on me. In fact, I have 3 of them on me right now. I have a small pocket knife. I have a little utility knife on my keychain. Then I have the one knife that you gave me as a gift, always on me, just stored away. I'm like, wow, I have a lot of blades on me right now. And again, not because I'm looking to get into any trouble. It's more just of a tool. Like the little pocket knife, easy, pop it out, boom, no problem, open up something real fast. The utility knife has got like other tools, screwdriver, other blades, little scissors on it, no problem. And then the knife that you gave me is an actual knife that you flip out and, do what you will with it. But I don't know. I'm kind of happy I haven't gotten to the point of buying guns. The way I curb that right now is I buy Nerf guns and have my kids play with those. In fact, about like a month ago, I took my oldest out to Target. And I'm like, all right, you want to buy a Nerf gun? Because he got excited. He wanted to do something, whatever the case was. I was like, all right, here's your price range. Buy any one you want. Just, let me take a look at it before you get it. And I'll tell you if I think it's a good one or not. He got this Nerf zombie blaster. And
okay,
it's kind of, it looks like a blunderbuss in a sense. Like it's got this big barrel, large handle. But it's not the... what do you call the little handle underneath that normally loads it? I can't remember off the top of my head. For like a rifle, like you remember that, like the pump it, but you like pull it away.
Oh, like a lever action?
Yeah, not a lever action. This actually had a
Okay.
hammer. And it was a pretty rough hammer to fucking load. Like, you put your thumb on it to pull it back. You're like, wow, this has got some tension to it. We bring it home. He plays with it. He's having fun with it. And he asks me to help him load it because you have to pull the hammer back each time. And then as you fire it, the barrel rotates internally and you can have the other darts that'll launch. Then the youngest, mind you, the youngest is 4. He gets his hand on the damn thing. And he realizes that when you pull the trigger, it's just loose. Nothing happens. When he sees his brother load it, he goes, oh, that's how you do the thing. Now I'm watching my youngest wrestle. He puts the gun between his legs. He's on the ground. He's wrestling with this damn hammer. I'm like, do you need help? He goes, no. I'm like, okay. And I'm watching. Like a good 3 minutes pass. I'm like, do you want me to help you? No. Okay, it'll be a lot quicker if I help you. No. Out of nowhere, I'm doing my thing. He's still wrestling with the hammer. I hear click. I'm like, oh shit. He fucking armed it. He gets up. He points at whatever he was looking to shoot off of like one of the tables. It was like a bottle or a cup, whatever the case is. His hand can reach around to pull the trigger, and because of the tension, it doesn't take much to pull the trigger. He hits his target, it falls over, and all of a sudden he goes, yay, woohoo! I'm like, oh, fuck, I just created a monster. So, suffice to say, they've been having fun with some of the Nerf guns in the house, and they're enjoying knocking things over and making the darts fly everywhere. So, now I have, like, Nerf darts scattered throughout the living room and the bedroom. It's one of those things that when we go to clean up, and you go, like, to pull the couch away from the wall, or if you go to, like, clean up around the bed or under the bed, you're just going to find random darts like months from now. So good times. And I don't know when the last time you checked out a Nerf gun might have been.
It's been probably at least a decade, if not longer.
Okay. Do yourself a favor. The next time you happen to go out to any type of store, Walmart, Target, anywhere else that might have toys, go to the Nerf gun section. Just play with some of the mechanisms that they have nowadays. They've gotten really fucking good as far as making the guns. Like, granted, they're all like, multicolored, and they you cannot mistake it for an actual gun.
Yeah, I know they do that on purpose.
Yes, but the mechanisms that they have, the rotating barrels, the loading clips, the slide reload, like all this stuff that they have now implemented into the different Nerf guns and the other offshoots now. I think like X-Shot is one of them. They've gotten really sophisticated. So much so that there's even a community, multiple communities online that will buy Nerf guns, take them apart, find whatever springs in there, put in stronger springs.
Oh.
So they up the velocity of the dart. And those bastards fly. Like, I'm amazed. Like, anything with nerds, get involved, forget about it. Nerds with firearms, even scarier. Because when they, like, do all these different mods and changes to the gun, and then they do a paint job on it to make it look a little bit more like something out of a movie or, a custom creation, whatever the case is, they get really, really into it. And some of these Nerf darts fly at high velocity to the point where if you're in close proximity and you get shot with one of these, it could actually sting a little bit.
I believe it.
It's quite surprising. So I remember one time we were messing around with one of the, I think it was one of the first revolving barrels for Nerf guns. I just goofed around with one of my friends. He put his head down and actually like pulled the trigger and shot in the top of his head with a Nerf dart. And I was like, 2 feet away from him?
Okay.
And I don't know if he has a soft head or what. He looks at me and goes, ow, fucker, that actually hurt. I'm like, no way. Gave him the gun. He loaded it. I put my head down. He shot me. I'm like, oh, shit, you're right. Sorry. I didn't realize I was doing that.
There you are.
But yeah, no, those... The engineering for toys has gotten scarier and scarier. Because the majority... I think I was reading a report. Like, the majority of toys are not made for kids anymore. They're made for the kids of the 80s and 90s who have now since grown up and have disposable income.
Yep.
So adults are a larger demographic now than kids are as far as toys are concerned. And I think you've said it before. They're selling our childhood back to us through nostalgia. So with a lot of that stuff, that just gets crazier and crazier. G.I. Joe. I think I might have mentioned this before. G.I. Joe figures, when I was growing up in the 80s, they had the 3.5-inch figures. You know, they had like the straight arms and legs and a few accessories here and there. They had the O-rings that attached the upper body and the lower body together. And they were pretty good representations of the figures at the time, for whatever they had, the molds and the articulation. Now, Hasbro has essentially revisited that old line, and now it's called G.I. Joe Unclassified. Hold on, I got one right here. There's one's right behind me, actually. I got it as a gift. G.I. Joe Classified series. And now they have multiple points of articulation. It's ridiculous. The figures are a lot larger. They're 6.5. Oh, no, 6. This one actually says 6.3 inches tall. So
okay.
But this one character I'm looking at in particular is Shipwreck. And he's a sailor. He comes with his little white sailor hat. You can take the white sailor hat off, and they actually have like a little headpiece for his hair, because if you try to put the sailor hat on top of the hair, it doesn't look right, so they have two different accessories for it. They have his parrot, Polly. He has a handgun. He has a secondary handgun, looks a little bit different with a longer barrel. He's got a grappling hook and a rope. And like, he's got two holsters, one on off of his hip, one off of his thigh. Like, the amount of detail that they can pull off now with the figures is insane. So much so that like, some fans will complain like, oh, there's too much detail. But when they go back to the old 3.5-inch figure mold, they're like, oh, wait, that detail was actually molded into the original figure anyway. But now it's included as like a little like belt or add-on accessory. Okay, no, never mind. Forget I complained. No, the mold was there previous. They've just improved upon it.
Huh.
And back in the day, I remember G.I. Joe figures ran roughly about $5 back in the 80s. These figures now, mind you, 3.5 to 6.3, $5 back in the 80s. Now they run roughly about $25 a figure. It's like, wow, man, fucking selling back our childhood. You're not wrong.
Yep.
It's crazy shit, but hey. Capitalism. Gotta love it. I'm trying to think what else. There was like something I wanted to talk about tonight. I'm trying to remember. Oh, that's what it was. I texted you last week when we were saying that we were going to take the week off for the holiday. I finally got around to watching Oppenheimer.
Ah, okay, yes.
And,
what'd you think?
Well, first of all, I want to read the book now. Or I should say I want to listen to the book, because that's how I consume most books now, is through audio. But I had to... Okay, so full disclosure, the movie's like, what, 3 hours long, practically?
Yeah, give or take.
Okay, I've sat through 3-hour movies. In fact, I have Avengers Endgame on in the background, so it's just playing as we record. But as I sat down and watched it, knowing full well that it was a 3-hour movie, the first hour flew by.
Mm-hmm.
The pacing of it, I was really, really surprised with. Like, the way they start building up to it. And like, we know, like, the entire idea of this is the making of the atom bomb, so they're gonna build up to that. It's almost like a crescendo in a sense. It's the main event. And that first hour went by, and then I had to stop. So in total, I sat in 3 different sittings, and each time I watched an hour's worth of Oppenheimer. But each time I sat down, the hour flew by, to which I'm like, I think I want to watch it again. Just try to sit through the whole thing in one shot. But I gotta say, I think the most compelling part of the movie was the aftermath. Like, them making the bomb, them testing it, and then trying to like do the arms race and stay ahead of the other countries, making sure that they weren't being beaten as far as who made it first. That was all interesting. Yep. That was all fine and good. But then the aftermath of how the government responds to him and the way they treat him, and they try to like pretty much drag his name through the mud. And then like they even say in the movie, like years later, once everything's forgotten, forgive and forget kind of thing. And then they give him the award. I'm like, wow, that last hour really like just like encompasses just how a lot of these guys are treated, guys and women are treated when it comes to certain situations like this, where, yeah, you might be the hero of whatever war or whatever scenario might be going on at the time, but then years later they want to recognize you and give you a medal for whatever silly reason at that point, because it looks good as PR for somebody else or for the country itself. I was like, wow, this is fascinating. So yeah, I wish I saw it in the theater. I really regret not catching it when I was going to go that one time. Because that was the summer last year of Barbenheimer.
That opened like late July of 2023.
I was fortunate enough to catch Barbie because I was just curious as to how it was going to turn out, but didn't ever get a chance to catch it. And then when I remember the one time, I think it was like later, was it September? I think they were doing like a short re-release of the film in theaters.
Okay.
And I just didn't have the time to run out, and the way the ticket prices are these days, it just never lined up for me. But as soon as it became available, I think it was on Amazon Prime, I caught it. I was like, oh, okay, let's sit down and check it out, because there's no reason not to at this point. So as I was doing stuff around the house, and I was just compelled. Like, it was a really, really well done movie. Like, it's artfully done, like all the different set pieces and everything else, as far as his reactions to when he's making the bomb, and how they show the different cascading explosions and reactions of the atoms. The one thing I really, really liked early on was when you hear, at first I thought it was like a train. You hear like this thumping that plays in the background, and where he just like starts staring off into the distance, and you realize that's not a train. That's like the crowd at one of the rallies that you see later in the film, when they're celebrating the dropping of the bomb. I'm like, wow, that's really well done. Like, this whole set piece. And then him being haunted by, the explosion and what it's done to the people, and the numbers they mentioned. And I think they had talked about, they're going to drop the bomb on Kyoto. And the one politician goes, oh, no, not Kyoto. My wife and I had a honeymoon there. It's a nice place. Let's avoid that one.
Henry Stimson, I believe it was.
Yes. I was like, wow. That's crazy. And I stopped the film at one point, and I rewinded it, or went back and showed Jen. I'm like, can you tell me who's playing Truman? She goes, what do you mean? I'm like, look at the actor playing Truman, President Truman. Can you tell me who that is? And she like stared for like 30 seconds. She goes, I'm blanking. Who the hell is it? I'm like, that's Gary Oldman. She goes, what the fuck? I was like, yeah, Gary Oldman fucking melts into characters. Like, you cannot tell it's him. It took me a second.
Man, when he goes deep. Yeah.
Yeah, I was amazed. It took me like I looked up at the screen, saw what was going on. I looked away for a second, and then I had to do a double take. I'm like, holy shit, that's Gary Oldman. That's crazy. Like, and I'm assuming that the production of this movie pretty much gave everybody in Hollywood a job for at least a month. Because everybody's in this fucking movie. Jesus Christ, there were so many faces that popped up on screen. But wow, it's a really good movie. So here I am now, a year removed, finally catching it. If anybody has been like me and waited, please make some time, or watch it like I did in 3 different settings. It's a good movie. I am ashamed that I have not seen it sooner. It's a compelling story. The way that Nolan pulls it off cinematically, it looks amazing. Just from top to bottom, I was like, wow, okay, there's a reason, like, there's a certain echelon of movies, and this definitely falls in that category. So I was
the only downside to the movie, other than the length, in my opinion, is when you watch the movie, it's really fucking bleak when you think about it.
Absolutely, yes. Yeah, let's not get mixed up on that one. Yeah, the whole idea of it, like him coming up with the, I guess you can say, the theories. Like, I remember the movie trailer at one point, Matt Damon's character, I can't remember the name of the military character he played, or the individual.
Leslie Groves.
Thank you. When the idea of when they detonate the bomb, wait, this could possibly erase all reality as we know it? And he goes, there's a less than zero chance, but yes. He goes, what do you want? He goes, zero. Like, when they play that part in the trailer, they play it for laughs. And don't get me wrong, it's a moment of levity in the movie itself. But, yeah, no, the idea that they're playing with some crazy shit to make a big explosion so essentially they can win a war. And the idea is that they can send the troops home and keep our troops safe. Never mind what we're going to do to them. Them being the Japanese in this case. It's, yeah.
Well, it was, well, and it's always like taken up, and it should be noted, when they initially kicked off the project, it was under the pretense that the Germans were working on the project as well. Mm-hmm. And let's be honest here, the idea of the Third Reich having an atomic weapon, that's, yeah, I don't think things could get much worse than that.
Well, that lends itself to the question of, like, what if? What mm-hmm. if the Germans came up with it first? Or what if the Russians were able to complete it first? And there's that one point in the movie where they realized, I think it was the Russians, went down a different path when it came to their theories. Mm-hmm. And when Oppenheimer and his team found that out, they're like, oh, they went down this path. They're way behind us. They realized, because they had already gone down that path, and they hit a dead end. They couldn't figure it out, and they realized they had to go back to a previous point and go down another path. So, in building it and constructing it, and then just, getting it all together, it was like, if you came up to me, and not that I'm any kind of a movie maker or director or whatever the case is, but if you came up to me or anybody in particular and just and told them, make me a movie about the atom bomb and the race to make it, it ultimately becomes this film Oppenheimer. I would not know how you would put this film together. Storytelling, pacing, just filming it overall, but the way it's put together in this instance, I know it's what was the name of the book again?
Modern Day. It was, I can't remember. It's either Modern Day Prometheus or American Prometheus. I forget which.
I want to say it's Modern Day Prometheus.
Okay,
but yes, knowing it's based off a book, he had the framework for it. So don't get me wrong. I understand that it's based off of that, but filming this, it makes sense. Like I said, the flow is really, really good to the point where you don't realize an hour has passed by, 2 hours pass by. Then at that point, you're like in the aftermath of them actually detonating the bomb and then dropping it on its intended targets. I'm like, wow, this movie just moves. And I bring up again the last two Avengers movies, Endgame and Infinity War. Those movies in themselves are long, but the pacing of them make them move. They flow so well that you don't feel like you're sitting there for that full extended time.
So, I think one of the things that helps keep moves Oppenheimer along is it keeps you off balance, because they bounce you between his life story and the hearing with whether or not they were going to revoke his security clearance with the Atomic Energy Commission.
Yes.
And also going back to the hearing for the cabinet spot for bloody hell. I'm blanking on the character that Robert Downey Jr. plays, but you know what I mean, right? In black and white. Yeah.
Yeah.
Because they kept on mixing all three narratives together.
Yeah, well, that's just it. And you're right. I completely agree with you. Keeping you off balance really, really made it work, because at that point it kept you guessing, kept you wondering what's going on. Now, granted, this is a moment in history that they're playing off of, so we ultimately know what the outcomes are, but the inner workings of all these different relationships. And got to say it again, just to make sure, because I don't want to hear anybody in the emails or comments. Yes, this is all based on a true story. So are we getting 100% accurate accounts? Probably not. This is based off a book. I'm sure some of the narratives were surmised, or at the very least, they came up with certain things to fill certain gaps or holes they didn't have the full story of. So with that in mind, they made a close approximation of what happened in this time in history. My favorite was when Oppenheimer talks to Einstein, which I thought was an incredible relationship between the two of them. Because you think Albert Einstein, you're going to want to talk to Einstein. He's going to have all these ideas. He goes, oh, Einstein was a great mind. Kind of like saying he's past his prime, essentially. So he's not really involved in this whole thing. But what he says to Oppenheimer says, oh, at first they'll use you for your intellect, but then they'll mistreat you, and then eventually they'll give you a medal. Like he foresaw what happened. He knew how it was going to play out. And once that whole narrative plays out in the movie itself, I'm like, wow, this is... Again, like I knew I was going to enjoy it because it's Christopher Nolan. I don't think I've seen a Nolan movie that I didn't like. Even Tenet, for as crazy and like mind-bendy as Tenet is, I still enjoyed it. Inception was always fun. Obviously, the Batman movies were great. Memento was a fun one. So, like, I have not had a bad Christopher Nolan experience. Watching this one going in with all the different characters and everything else. Cillian Murphy, Robert Downey Jr., Matt Damon, Florence Pugh. I'm blanking on who played Oppenheimer's wife.
Oh, Emily Blunt.
Thank you. Shit. I'm losing names nowadays. Like all that.
It's a big cast. They don't really build as much, but it's really an ensemble cast.
It is. It absolutely is. That's what I mean. Like the different faces that you saw. Josh Hartnett at one point shows up and looking like radically different as one professor. And that's just like, wow, this is ridiculous. But like I said, I'm everybody in Hollywood worked on this film in some shape or form. and good for them. This is great. Like this is the kind of thing that you kind of want to see, where everybody comes together for this big production, and that they're all contributing. They're all making this great film. So, it's awesome. That's really the only thing I can really say. I'm happy I finally got to watch it. I wish I'd seen it sooner, and it's one of those movies that is definitely going to be remembered for quite some time. So, and again, you're completely on the mark as far as, it is a very bleak movie. So, and that's just the realization of what we're doing with such immense power, and what, again, the what if it landed in somebody else's hands. So whenever they talk about, like right now with the current situations that are going on across the globe, when the discussion of dropping a bomb even comes up, you're just like, oh God, please no. Because if one person gets even like an inkling of that's what we should go with, then the retaliation just is not anything to look forward to. It's just nuts. So,
well, the thing that scares me about the whole situation, this is for the concept of actually using a nuke in any type of military application, and even just the general idea of some of the stuff we're tap dancing towards right now. One of the things that gets me is we no longer have any leaders around who saw the sheer devastation of World War II. They're all either they're retired or they're dead at this point because it's been so long. On top of that, I mean, even worse, I mean, there were personnel who went to Hiroshima and Nagasaki after the bombings and actually saw just like these cities that were just turned to just, as far as the eye could see, there was just rubble or nothing in some cases. Those guys are all gone. So the people who actually witnessed these horrors firsthand, they're no longer around. And there were always nutbags out there. Like, I'm trying to remember the name of the one famous general who was just like his solution to every problem was nuke them. It was this one Air Force general. Bloody hell, I'm blanking on the guy's name, but he was famous back in the 50s and 60s because he wanted to just, Korea, North Korea, South Korea use nukes. Vietnam, use nukes. Problem over here, use nukes. His answer to everything was just use nukes. Not Leslie Groves. It's going to bother me until I remember the fucking guy's name. But the point of the matter is, as we get more and more away from that, we're getting closer and closer to... That's going to make it, unfortunately, not only, I think, unfortunately, puts us dangerously close to somebody using nuclear weaponry, it also puts us dangerously close to... whatchamacallit, another world war, in my opinion.
Oh yeah, that's been talked about for quite some time now.
Yeah,
So as tensions grow and grow, what's the Doomsday Clock currently at? Do you remember off the top of your head?
30 seconds.
Ugh.
We were. Oh, by the way, that general I was talking about was Air Force General Curtis LeMay.
Okay.
Um, Getting back to the point, yeah, for years and years and years after the Doomsday Clock was started back in, I think it was 40, in the late 40s, early 50s. The closest we got back in those days was 2 minutes to midnight, which that was in the early 50s when both the United States and the USSR successfully tested hydrogen bombs, which all of a sudden you went from like having a real nasty explosion on your hand to you wipe a city off a map with a hydrogen bomb. Um, and then, as some of the nuclear treaties started coming out, they started scaling it back. After the Soviet Union dissolved back in 1990, they took us up to 17 minutes to midnight, and then we've been drifting further and further close. And yeah, we're currently at 30 seconds to midnight.
That's terrifying.
Well, I mean, between if for somehow, some way, all these different conflicts between Europe and the Middle East and all over the place, they don't flare over, you know, I'm pretty sure it's not supposed to be sustained, mid 90 degrees with high humidity every fucking day in this region.
No.
So if one thing don't get us, the other will.
Yeah. Oh. Yeah. The current heat wave hitting us right now is no joke. What was it, like 2 weeks ago, 3 weeks ago, that we had the problem where I couldn't even record in this room because it was too damn hot.
Yeah, where every day it wasn't just the fact that every day it was creeping up into the mid 90s and even higher with the humidity. It was the fact that at night it never seemed to get like any cooler than 70 degrees, so it never gave the heat a chance to dissipate.
Yeah, it's never a good thing. So yeah, that's again, when it comes to military and science put together, they're so preoccupied with, can they never think, should they? And I I know I sound like a rambling moron at this point, but I always wonder what the world would look like if we didn't have that bomb. Because I remember as a kid, I had to have been like 8 or 10 years old, somewhere around that time. And I don't know if it was a textbook or a history book where my brother was teaching me about the atom bomb, or at least the bomb that dropped on Hiroshima. And there were a few shots in this book where they had like people like looking at the photographer. They were survivors of the bomb itself, but whoever wasn't taken out by the explosion was taken out by the radiation poisoning, or the injuries that they sustained. And not long after, they just, there was no survival at that point. You knew you had a limited time. But I remember my brother telling me that the intense heat from it, when they would attempt to remove people's clothing, like just taking somebody's shirt off, you were also taking off their flesh along with it.
Yep.
And that idea, that image in my head when he told me that, always haunted me and always stuck with me. So I'm like, why the fuck would you make this? Again, I understand the United States and their line of thinking about, bring our boys home and all that stuff. All fine and good if you're the United States. But quite literally, one group of human beings decided to drop on another group of human beings, and shit just got fucked up real quick. And it's not the kind of thing you can really take back. I laugh because I just find it terrifying, so pardon me, but the whole thing was just like, what if we didn't have the bomb? And granted, the war would have taken a different route and everything else, and things probably would have played on longer and longer, but still, it's just like, did we really need to go that far? And then, like, again, pushing for other armaments, other types of explosions or weapons that could just, make wars shorter or less prolonged. I mean, hell, I'll bring superheroes into this because I always do. The first Iron Man movie, Tony Stark is selling the Jericho missile. It's like the deep bunker buster. Essentially, you send that off into a mountain wherever the enemy might be hiding in caves, and the missile pops into multiple projectiles and can just easily decimate this mountainside. So if your target is deep underground, they won't be for much longer.
Mm-hmm.
So it's always the military pushing for, that next step of explosives or projectiles or whatever the case is. Thank God, we haven't gone back to weapons with high levels of radiation, because then who knows where shit would go then. But
well, that's not exactly true.
Well, not on a regular basis, I should say. Yeah, I understand depleted uranium and all that stuff that get used in different rounds, but I don't know. It's horrifying, some of the stuff they come up with, not realizing some of the aftermath. I know, what was it? Some of the tanks had depleted uranium rounds, and then when they would fire on the enemy tanks or the enemy vehicles, troops would go and make sure that the targets were taken out. And then because, you're in war, you kind of want a memento or a souvenir of what you've done, they'll take pieces of scrap or, whatever they find in the target's vehicle or person, and I'm going to keep this as a memento, only to realize that years later that depleted uranium still has radiation on it. And because of that memento, now they have radiation sickness, or they get cancer years later, and their trophy essentially is taking them down. So I don't know, that just shit's terrifying sometimes.
Well, I'll give you actually, I think this might be a good way to wrap up the show, but I'll tell you another quick story about how close we came.
Okay.
Have you ever heard of Stanislav Petrov?
I think we've covered this one, yes.
Have I talked about him before?
I think we did a while back, but please go for it. It's always good.
Okay. So to kind of wrap up the point on this one, Stanislav Petrov, he was a Russian man. He was in the Soviet Air Defense Forces during the Cold War. In 1983, he dealt mainly with the early detection installations, where they were basically keeping an eye on the Soviet satellites that were monitoring in case the United States launched a preemptive nuclear strike against the Soviet Union. They would detect the missiles and be able to launch a counterstrike against them, ensuring that they didn't get caught with their pants down. Mm-hmm. So I think it was 83 or 84, at his installation, all of a sudden, they started getting all these notifications from one of the satellites saying the United States has launched a nuclear strike against us. And at first, the first message he got, it was one missile, which he then looked at that and said, if they were going to sneak us, why would they only fire one? That's not going to be enough to take us out. So, of course, if he had actually followed protocol, that would have been to notify command in Moscow and say, the United States are attacking us. You might want to, you do what you need to do, or, give them the information, which their response would probably be, okay, launch our counterstrike. Mm-hmm. But he said, don't do anything. We're going to hold. I think this is bullshit. And then the thing actually went off again, and it gave another notification that, it looks like another couple of missiles are flying. And once again, he said, they're not firing. If they're trying to sneak us, they're not firing enough missiles. This doesn't make any sense. And so both times he held off on actually running it up chain of command and running it up, so to speak, to headquarters. And he was right. In fact, I believe, as the memory serves, it was sunlight reflecting off of a cloud that bounced back and hit the satellite, and the satellite read that as missile launch. So it's shit like this. I really do look at it and be like, I don't understand how we still exist some days. What the fuck?
Yeah, and the thing, anybody, if you're gonna have somebody in that position that's gonna have to analyze the data as it comes through and make that call to pull it, I go back to the movie War Games.
Yep, I was just thinking about that.
What was it Mike Madsen and I can't remember the name of the other gentleman, the other actor, but they get the alert and they have to go into the silo and they have to turn both keys. And Madsen's character is ready to turn it, but the other guy, the older character, is not willing to turn the key. It's just what the fuck? What are you doing? And that was the impetus of okay, we can't have a human making this decision. Let's give it to a computer. That's long been since rescinded. But yeah, imagine somebody who is trigger happy gets that. Oh my god, they launched a missile at us, whether it is the one or whatever the case is. The fact that he was able to break it down and say, no, that's not enough. What the fuck? Like, that makes no sense. Hold. And then for the second alert to go through, goes, wait, multiple. Still not enough. No, fuck this. Thank God.
It's not even somebody who's an analyst. If he just followed his job and and he followed protocol and just did his job, that would be report this into headquarters.
Yeah.
But he said no, because I think he realized the implication is if they see this, we're in World War III, and I don't think we want to do that.
Yeah.
So.
No, we've definitely talked about this before.
Okay.
I don't know if it was one of your horrible events in history, but I know it's come up a few times because I know it might have even come up when we talked about the Doomsday Clock before as well. But
makes sense.
Yeah.
I don't think I ever did. No, I actually have. I made lists of all of my horrible events in history. I still have them jotted down in my one notebook. So this was definitely not one I did formally. But now that we're talking about it, you see, the funny thing is I've told so many people about this that I don't remember who the hell I've told about this, because this is one of those things I like to. I'm not a sadist per se, but sometimes I'm like, I want someone else to see the world how I see it. I want someone to understand how I look at the world. And the way I look at the world is not a pretty picture.
No, and it's completely understandable.
Mm-hmm.
What was the other one that we talked about? I know you said we were going to wrap this up, but we just mentioned the other one, War is a Racket.
Oh, by Smedley Butler.
Smedley Butler, yes. And that whole...
Yeah, that and the business plot, when they tried to overthrow FDR, I definitely did a horrible event in history on that one.
Yeah, I mean, some of the stuff that happens, like people talking about, you can trust in your government. Your elected officials are human beings and they're fallible just like anybody else. So what it takes to make them fallible, therein lies the question of what's going on. Because there's always a news story of this elected official or this politician or this judge, whatever the case is, something happened, they took money, they were in discussions with somebody else, and crazy shit. I'm not pointing to anything in particular. We try to shy away from that kind of stuff here, but all that's to say that I agree. I understand exactly what you mean as far as like looking at the world through your lens, because you kind of have to. Like, you can't just take it, sunshine and rainbows all the time, because you'll just be oblivious to what's really going on. For me, I'll peek my head in there every now and then just to make sure see what's going on. I've got kids, so now I have to try to think of the long-term future. So I would like to think that things are going to get better. I hope that things are going to get better, but I'm also at the same time trying to be a realist and realizing that sometimes shit's not getting any better. And what are you going to do? So try your best to plan and prepare, but at the same time, like, don't let it overtake you, and don't let it like just cripple you in a sense. But I get it. That's why, like, when I asked you as far as like the Doomsday Clock, the fact that we're getting closer and closer, that's terrifying. I didn't really know what the Doomsday Clock was when I was growing up. I just thought it was a nifty little name for something. Catchy kind of thing, but the realization of what it's used for and what it's supposed to stand for, and it's like, wow, it's sobering when you think of it that way. And again, it's sobering to think of the amount of power that's out there that we as human beings have somehow stumbled upon. But should we have it? It's not me for me to say yes or no, but it's out there. It's been found. And they're constantly going to be looking for other fields, the Hadron Collider and all the other stuff. We talk about UFOs and now UAPs that they're referred to as. Like all these things, more and more and more, you're finding out like that just a bunch of crazy shit out there that we are just scratching the surface of. And who knows what it's going to take us and what path it's going to lead us down. Hopefully, not to the end of the world. One of my friends put up a thing on Facebook. It was like one of those just quick posts, but it's like, oh, we were lucky enough to be born on a planet where we can literally grow food, and somehow I ended up with a credit score. It's like, yeah, that's kind of sums it up a little bit. I mean, you're missing some of the finer points, but yeah, you're right. Like, we've learned how to monetize just about every aspect of life. Why? It could have been so much different. But again, it is what it is. Try to make do with what you got, and hopefully you can, come out on top in certain respects. But who knows? So all that to say, I guess, try to respect one another, try to love one another. I'm not talking like hippy dippy shit, but just, love for your fellow man, and just hopefully we can all get through this one day at a time. Does that sound fair?
No.
I thought you'd give me a longer pause on that one. So I don't know how to end this on a better note.
Just end it.
Yeah, at that point, it's just, well, God, prolonging it further and further. If you've made it this far and we've terrified you in your everyday life, you're welcome. Thank you for listening. My name is Eric Hernandez.
I'm Doug.
And we are the Rabblecast.